Again, the article is only in the first word. Article, word, kai, connective kai, and then another word. So this article goes with both of these, but this becomes a subset of the first word. It's similar to the Granville Sharp rule, where there's an article, word, kai, and then another word without the article. The second word without the article. Here, why does he use this construction? Because this is both mental attitude and the function of that mental attitude. The mental attitude is courtesy. Courtesy is a mental attitude. And this produces epiegeia, genitive singular feminine of epiegeia, epiegeias. Epiegeias means reasonableness, but it has a tinge of clemency. Clemency means when you do not give someone the punishment that they deserve. You listen and hear what they have to say. Kind of like a student who's already failed many tests. He has not turned in many assignments, and he says, "Please, I appeal to your clemency. Professor, give me one more chance." And the professor says, "All right, I'll give you one more chance. If you pass this test, then I'll raise your grade half a grade, or I don't know, something like that." We're going to translate it reasonableness. So, and these mental attitudes belong to who? To Christ. This is the fruit of Christ. This is the fruit of his spiritual life. Now we have these same mental attitudes. One thing about a believer is that he must be courteous, he must be thoughtful, he must be sensitive, not hypersensitive, sensitive. Sensitive is consideration towards others, thoughtfulness towards others' feelings. You do not do things to catch attention beyond just to be the center of attention and making people feel uncomfortable and all that. And yes, you might have talent. Yes, you might catch a lot of attention. But the reason why you're in a social group is so that you can be there for social activity, not to be the center of attention. Little things like that. Courtesy, thoughtfulness. And that's part of impersonal love. It's also part of grace orientation. So courtesy and reasonableness, clemency, and then we have the possessive genitive of Christ, belonging to Christ. Christ had these mental attitudes. He gives it to you as you advance in the divine power sphere. Learning Bible doctrine. This is the thinking of Christ. Christo. Okay. And now, I myself, Paul, exhort you all through the courtesy and reasonableness of Christ. Then we have a relative pronoun, nominative, singular of hos. Here it is. A relative pronoun has an antecedent. What is the antecedent? Go, tell me. Is it Christ? It can be, but it's in the nominative case. Excuse me. It can change, but here, Paul is the one that's speaking. He's the one that's writing. It goes back here to the nominative of Paulos. Who, I, myself, Paul, exhort you. Paul, who, and what else? What do we have? We have this construction, men, and then what do you expect after men? Most of the time, de. And you look for it, can you see it? And it's right here, de. This goes back to classical Greek, on the one hand, on the other hand. O-T-O-H, O-T-O-H. He's about to give two contrasts. And we're going to translate it just like that. On the one hand, on the other hand. I like to keep certain things that way. The NIV wants to smooth it out a little bit too much. Who am timid when face to face with you, but bold toward you in a way. I like that, but I kind of like to keep it as Greeky as possible. So that you can also learn to read the Greek. On the one hand, on the other hand. On the one hand, what? Who, on the one hand, and then there's no verb. Who tapeinos is humble. Here, yes, it can mean humble, but here in this case, it's used as timid. Humble is often used as a virtue, but tapeinos is also used as a negative thing, a negative mental attitude, such as shyness, timidness, timidity, being a mouse. Who is? So we add a verb because there's no verb. There's a prepositional phrase, kataprosopon. There's tapeinos in the nominative, and then there's another prepositional phrase, en humin. Where's the verb? No verb. It's elliptical. So we add the verb, the third person singular of Amy. So estin. Who is, just to make it better English, who is timid, and then the prepositional phrase, kata plus the accusative of prosopon, accusative singular neuter. That means face, according to the face. And that's an idiom. The idiom says in person. Who is timid in person? That's the allegations that the Corinthians are saying. Look at this, Paul. Did you read his letter his first letter? How much of a giant he was, but now in person he's a mouse. So according to in person, who is timid in person, and then the preposition of and plus the dative of location, among y'all. We're going to translate it among you. Who is, on the one hand, who is timid in person with you or among you. And then, they, on the other hand. On the other hand, and then what is it? Apon is a present active participle of apeimi, a compound word, which is the preposition of apo plus amy, on. So being away, and so becomes absent. Being absent. The present tense is descriptive. It's also pictorial, present, painting a picture as to how when he is absent, he is being very bold. He's being a social media warrior, typing all the way, saying all these things, speaking very boldly, very smart, very intelligent. But in person, what happened? We imagine he was a different person. And Paul's using this argument and throwing it at the Corinthians. So how did I translate it? I'm going to translate it in absence. Okay. On the other hand, in absence. And then we have the present active indicative of tharo. Not the tharo that you drink that assy beer from, but tharo as in being courageous. Tharo. It means confident, courageous, bold. I like all those translations. And here I'm gonna translate it bold. Courageous, bold. The present tense is also pictorial present. And yes, pictorial present, painting the picture as to Paul being bold at that moment. It's also descriptive because he switches to the first person. Over here, you see no verb. Who humble or who timid in person. And then literally says, on the other hand, in the absence, I am being bold. Why does he switch to the first person? Because that's exactly what he's doing right now. He's being bold at this moment, except through the mental attitudes of Christ. It just gives you an idea as to how much of a relaxed person he is. He should be angry. I would be angry at all that jackass things that these people are saying about you. But no, he's relaxed. He's able to be sarcastic. Not only that, he's able to switch it to the first person, giving it a sort of a double entendre. I am bold in absence. And then ace plus the accusative of direction toward y'all. Accusative of su, second person, humas, toward y'all. Now we have a translation. What does it say? And now, I, myself, Paul, he has taken the pen, exhort y'all, through or by the mental attitude of courtesy and reasonableness of Christ. Who, Paul, who on the one hand is timid in person with y'all, on the other hand is bold toward y'all in absence. But literally, who on the other hand, I am being bold toward y'all in absence. So he switched to the first person. Okay. Paul was not a mouse. Go to Galatians chapter 2. We need to see how Paul put on check that great spiritual giant, Peter. Peter had legalistic problems. Yes, he followed Christ. He was there. Yes, it's true. He denied Christ 3 times and he recovered. But even in the midst of his recovery, he had a hard time getting away from his legalistic Judaism. He was kind of in the middle. Every time he found Gentile believers, oh, hey, how you doing? Oh, God bless you, I suppose. But then whenever Jewish believers arrived, oh, he alienated himself from those Gentiles and just formed cliques with the Jews because we are Jews. So here it is, verse 11. I'm not going to give you the Greek. The NIV does an okay job. This is Paul when he was in Antioch. Paul had a ministry in Antioch before he took on his missionary journeys. And Cephas, Peter, was there. And Peter was having a great time with these Gentile believers from Antioch. So it says, when Cephas, means rock, came to Antioch, I opposed him to his face, because he stood condemned. For before certain men came from James, which is one of the leaders of the Jerusalem church. These certain men were Jews. For before certain men came from James, he used to eat with the Gentiles. So he had a reciprocity with these guys with no problems. No problem just having good fellowship with the Christians. But when they, the Jews, arrived, he began to draw back and separate himself from the Gentiles because he was afraid of those who belonged to the circumcision group. So these legalistic Jewish Christians, they are believers. They still have a problem from getting away from such Mosaic observances as circumcision. The other Jews joined him in his hypocrisy. So now Peter is causing a great schism inside of a church, and Paul cannot accept that. He cannot allow that. All the other Jews started following him, and they're about to divide themselves into factions. The Jewish Christians versus the Gentile Christians. The other Jews joined him in his hypocrisy, so that by their hypocrisy, even Barnabas, this grace-oriented Barnabas, remember when Barnabas was the one who took Mark? So Mark abandoned Barnabas and Paul on their first missionary journey. He left them. He went AWOL. But Mark recovered. Mark, the guy who wrote the Gospel of Mark, yes, him. Mark was the cousin of Barnabas. But then on the second missionary journey, Mark had recovered, and Paul said, nope, you're not coming with us. Nope. And Barnabas said, come on, give him another chance. He recovered. He give him another chance. Paul said, nope. And so they parted ways. Barnabas, this is how grace-oriented he was. He gave him another chance. Here, he is not demonstrating this wonderful grace orientation. He has allowed his Judaism to divide him, to separate him, to influence his mental attitude into a legalistic one. So that by their hypocrisy, even Barnabas was led astray. Verse 14. When I saw that they were not acting in line with the truth of the gospel, I said to Cephas in front of them all. I'm one of those that I'm for whenever you rebuke someone under you, and that person under you has delegated authority, you do not rebuke him in front of his underlings, because that undermines his authority in front of his underlings. But sometimes it is necessary to rebuke that person under you, or a person co-equal to you in authority, in front of his underlings, especially in this case when there's about to be a schism. Everyone needed to see this and hear the doctrinal lesson so that the schism can be quelled. When I saw that they were not acting in line with the truth of the gospel, I said to Cephas in front of them all, you are a Jew, yet you live like a Gentile and not like a Jew. How is it then that you force Gentiles to follow Jewish customs? And so he goes on and explained this principle, but he put him in his place. The Greek is much stronger than this cute English that we have in the NIV. So Paul was not a mouse. He was not scared to use his authority.